When Jason told me he was bringing a few friends home from college for the weekend, I said yes without thinking. I figured it would be like any other holiday visit, some loud music, too many dishes in the sink, and boys who still somehow smelled like high school gym socks even after 2 years away. But I wasn't prepared for them. For the shift they'd cause in a house that had, for too long, felt a little too quiet. A little too lonely. They arrived on a Friday just after 6. Jason burst through the door, all energy and messy hair. Behind him were 3 tall silhouettes and too many bags. I remember wiping my hands on a towel and forcing a smile. "Mom, this is Eli, Mason, and Beck," he said, pointing left to right. "They're crashing here for the weekend." I nodded, smiled, offered drinks and snacks. I was used to being invisible in a room full of 20-somethings. But that night, I wasn't. It was subtle at first. The way Beck, quiet, thoughtful Beck, looked at me when I laughed at one of Jason's jokes. Or how Eli's hand lingered just a little too long on mine when he passed the serving bowl. Mason, the boldest of them all, complimented the wine I poured, then complimented me. And he didn't mean the wine. At first I brushed it off. I told myself I was imagining it. I hadn't been with anyone since Jason's father left 3 years ago, and even before then, I was used to fading into the background. But that weekend, the air inside the house shifted. Everything felt warmer. Louder. More alive. That first night, they stayed up watching movies. I brought down blankets, extra pillows, tried to disappear. But just as I turned to head upstairs, I heard it. "She doesn't look old enough to be your mom," Eli said. There was a pause. Then laughter. Jason brushed it off. "Yeah, okay, relax." But the seed was planted. The next day, Jason went out early, some last-minute errand run with his old friends from town. I offered to make breakfast, not realizing he'd be gone for hours. When I turned around from the stove, Beck was there in the doorway, watching me like I was art in a museum. "You always this domestic?" he asked. "Only when I want something," I replied. His grin spread slowly. "What do you want?" It wasn't flirtation that made me freeze. It was the way he asked it. Not a tease. A real question. Like he'd noticed I hadn't been asked anything real in years. Before I could answer, Mason walked in shirtless, yawning, and poured himself coffee like he belonged here. "You're up early," he said, eyeing me over the rim of his cup. I felt seen. Not in that uncomfortable way, but in the kind of way that reminds you you're alive. And then there was Eli. Polite, measured, a little older than the other 2. Later that afternoon, I found him outside fixing the loose hinge on the back gate. He wiped sweat off his forehead and looked up at me. "This place is beautiful," he said. "You've made it feel like home." I should have been flattered. Instead, I felt something shift again. Something heavy and reckless stirring beneath the surface. That night, I made too much dinner. The wine poured freely. Jason was tired, fell asleep early on the couch. The others lingered, talking, laughing, asking questions about my job, my travels, my regrets. I forgot, for a while, that I was supposed to be the adult in the room. At some point, I stood to clear the table. And I heard it again. "You're not like I expected," a Mason said from behind me. I turned. "Expected?" He stepped closer. "Mums don't usually make me nervous." And then, he was close. Too close. I told him to stop. But I didn't say it loud enough. Nothing happened. Not really. Just words, glances, a proximity that pressed against boundaries I hadn't realized were fading. And in that moment, one of those long, pulsing moments, I let myself feel it. The thrill. The danger. The wrongness wrapped in something intoxicating. But then, I looked past Mason and saw Eli, standing in the hallway, eyes fixed on mine. Not judgment. Just disappointment. That was worse. I stepped back. Said goodnight. Locked my door. The next morning, the house was silent. Jason didn't mention anything. If he'd noticed tension, he chalked it up to hangovers. But I noticed. Eli didn't look me in the eye. Mason didn't apologize. Beck watched me like he was still trying to figure out who I was. When they left Sunday afternoon, Jason hugged me and promised to visit again soon. The others mumbled thanks. Mason winked. I didn't smile back. Later that evening, I sat at the same table and replayed the weekend in my head, trying to pinpoint the moment it turned. The moment curiosity became temptation. The moment I stopped being Jason's mother and became someone else entirely. I thought I could handle a little attention. I was wrong. It stayed on that kitchen table. Words, touches, glances. Nothing more. But that's the thing about almosts. Sometimes they haunt more than the things that actually happen.